and was instructed by the Inwani government to do something, which was basically had been a reserved power, then he or she personally could be liable both criminally and civil, under the civil law, if the Scottish government did not also agree it. Now, people might think that's theoretical, but if you are an individual with a senior position, whether it's a civil servant, Governor of the Bank of England, or whatever like that, until there's an agreement between the dissolving parties, then they are based, and despite the fact that there could be guarantees from the Inwani government to support them and things like that, they might own property in Scotland, they might have connections with Scotland, all the rest of it, that it's quite a big call for them to make without having the agreement of both former partners of the United Kingdom. So these are the sort of things that have got to be remembered, and as a result of that, of course, because it could put the former United Kingdom assets and liabilities in suspended animation, that would again force the parties to get around the table and negotiate as quickly as possible. And of course, the international community would be really putting pressure as well on them, to come to an agreement. Because you can imagine NATO, what they would be saying, the Americans, the EU, etc. All these people, we've really got to get this resolved. So, the Independence Delivery Group, it would need to be agreed what the composition of that was. Now, you're looking for people that are committed to Scottish independence, but they're also experts in their field. Now, there's been a whole host of people, very clever people, have been working away, beavering away, under the guise of different things, on currency and pensions, you name it, all these kind of things in banking. And this is so that we go over the line. This is so that we get our independence. This isn't what necessarily would be the position after we were independent, because we're going to have to discuss all these things as a nation, but to get us over the line and get started as an independent nation. There's also, constitution, for example. I was involved in a constitution group, so we actually have a constitution more or less ready to go. It doesn't upset the apple cart in respect of any things for the republican monarchy, etc. That is something for the Scottish people to decide once we're independent, but it gets us over the line in the meantime. Legal standards, so you need some expert lawyers in that group, to basically draft the legislation which the provisional Scottish Government would need on the day of dissolution, so that would make clear what the rules were regarding, or what the law was, regarding, for example, the end of the influence of the UK Supreme Court, currency, etc. So that's a relatively simple act. It's got to be there and ready and not moving about. Fundraising, that is another thing which has got to be discussed, and there would be within the Independence Delivery Group that would need to be addressed. Because the thing is that this is potentially our last chance within the foreseeable future, 5, 10, 15 years, that we have an opportunity for Scotland to become independent. So it really is important that there is a focus on that, and a focus on the funds which are needed in order to fund the Independence Delivery Group. Also the media. There are some aspects of the media that I don't think that the SNP government actually deal with particularly well. And again, media experts in the delivery group could make that a much easier call for us. There's also how the Scottish Government can buy the votes. It says constitutionally the Scottish Government cannot basically hold a referendum or whatever. But what it can do is it can use the devolved powers that it's got. And it hasn't really used these to the nth degree that it could. So, for example, there's a thing called devolved taxes, Section 80I of the Scotland Act. And that basically provides the Scottish Parliament with the power to really tax the heritable assets, which is land and property on it, throughout Scotland. almost got exclusive power to tax that. And it is possible, wearing my other hat as a land reformer, that if they brought in a form of annual ground rent, then they could more than have sufficient money to cover all Scotland's public service costs on that. So that's one thing they could do. The other one is to buy the vote. Under Section 28 of the Scotland Act, they have the power to create a universal basic income. Now, as long as it's not funded from the Consolidated Fund, which is the money that's paid to the UK government, or through the National Insurance Fund, then you can have a universal basic income. They have the power to do that. Up to now they've chosen not to use it, but they could do that. And if that was provided, and it could be set up very, very quickly, and money was actually put in the hands of everybody, then that would actually show not just that there was a vision for a future Scotland, but we could actually deliver it. Because what we've got to remember is there's probably about 15-20% of people who maybe are sympathetic to the idea of Scotland's independence, but they're going to decide this on risk. They're going to decide it, how it affects my pocket, how they see it affecting my pocket, and these are the things that we've got to be aware of. We've got to create, again, the delivery group would create a climate of expectation and inevitability. It wouldn't be we could, it is we will. Things of that nature. Creating papers, etc., coming out, so that basically there is a wealth of information coming out. To say, address the fear of risk. Somebody that's got a big mortgage or whatever, or big commitments, they want to know that their lifestyle is not going to be adversely affected in the process of independence, or indeed in the years that followed that. We've got to look at guaranteeing public sector employment in contracts. So with contracts, for example, if we look at the VA systems and Babcocks and the building of ships and things of that nature, that ties in with negatives into positives. The last time defence was really, we were a bit in the back foot with that. But what some of the work that Dave Dugan is doing, which I hope he'll produce fairly soon, will actually show that the demand, what we will require for our armed forces, is such that there is plenty of work for these organisations, and that we can guarantee the employment in there for quite some time going forward. Undermine the British state and the civil service. I said at a meeting years ago to an MP, I said, what did you do yesterday to undermine the British state? And she looked at me and she said, I'm not that sort of nationalist. And I said, well, look, I said, if you are seeking independence, then by its very nature, the UK is going to lose a third of its land mass, most of its, about 60% of its economic zone, and all these kind of things. I said, you are undermining the British state. If you're following that, I said, so you've really got to undermine it and think that way, as well as think in the positive way as well. I've spoken to her since, and she's beginning to come around to that idea. Currency and banking, obviously that is something that we've got to get that sorted out. That way, if we're going to have a pound, let's have a pound, what we want to call it. It will have the same, on the day of dissolution, it will have the same value as the UK pound, etc., and give a time scale for that pound down. There are people that are involved in that, very clever people that can get that expressed in a way I think that people would accept it. Mortgages is something which is a reserved issue, but it's a big issue for people, particularly with interest rates going up, and the difficulty that people are now having in trying to manage debt. Debt was quite easy to manage when interest rates were 2 or 3%, but when it starts to jump, it's obviously a thing. And that is something which we should be looking at just now to see how we could potentially take that, to sting out that mortgage thing going forward. There's the police. I did a Freedom of Information inquiry to the Scottish Police Board to find out what questions were asked by the interview panel of the applicants for the new Chief Constable, Scottish Chief Constable. I'm waiting for a reply, and I'll keep at it, because basically we should know what constitutional questions, if any, were put to that individual, so that we actually know, what her, as it turns out, who's her ultimate duty to? Is it to the Scotland? dissolve the Union or pursue that the United Kingdom, because obviously security is a big issue. So that is something that we've got to look at. To say negatives into court. Pensions, again, well, Gordon Kemp has been pushing the idea of an enhanced pension, which seems to resonate with a lot of people, and also with the issue of people's personal pensions and all that. So these are things that have got to be promoted. And the borders and the export markets, just nearly finished with this, but there was an any questions. I don't know if many of you have listened to any questions. Very occasionally I'll listen to it. There's an any questions from Carlisle fairly recently, and there was a question, you know, what would happen to Cumbria and the border if Scotland became independent? And one of the ladies on the panel was the chief executive of their local development organisation. I've had I researched it, and I mean, she's got a fabulous CV. She's been a real high-powered individual in many respects. And she actually said that they were doing work on that. They commissioned work on that to see what it would be like. And although the work wasn't finished, she says, you know, as well as there being challenges, there are great opportunities. And you could actually hear the Tory representative and the Labour representative, you know, really sigh when she said that. And so it just shows you that, you know, it's not one of these things where you would expect the reaction in the South to be sort of negative on that. And lastly, this is the draft resolution which Dumbarton CA and the Ellensborough branch have submitted for consideration, which basically kind of sums up what I've been sort of trying to say. First of all, it declares the Scottish a sovereign authority, and we have the legal right to become a nation state without the consent and cooperation of the UK government. We request the Scottish government to use its powers to ensure that the process of securing nation state status does not prejudice the basic financial security of any of its citizens. We commit all the members of the SNP to contest the general election to secure the dissolution of the United Kingdom and the creation of the nation state of Scotland. And we basically say that if a majority vote that way, the UK will be dissolved. The Scottish MPs, including SNP MPs and any other like-minded, wish to come along, which will remove the jurisdiction of the UK Supreme Court and advise the United Nations, etc. That failing the agreement with the UK government and official opposition, that Scotland will adhere to the Vienna Convention on the succession of states and respect of state property, and declare that Scotland will take responsibility on an equitable basis for the rights and obligations of the former United Kingdom. Now, just to conclude, I think there should be an element of urgency here now. What is the most important thing that really matters to us here? And I think it is independence. We constantly get our MPs or MSPs, spokespersons, you know, going, it would be far better with independence, this would be different, etc., etc. We need the powers of independence. Well, here is an opportunity for us all to focus on this through the prism of independence, so that the legislation which is promoted, the first question, or the first hurdle you've got to go over is, does this advance the cause of independence, or does it cheese off a fairly large section of our community? Things like that. And I feel that, you know, for the next 12 months, 15 months, if we committed ourselves and focused on that, all of us focused on that, then, you know, there's a real opportunity for us to become an independent state within 15 months.